Now, this is the time of year when many of us are creating new resolutions or starting to think about new goals, and a lot of the topics are on health. And if you're anything like me in prior years, you might have set something up because, well, everyone's doing it this time of year, and it might be the same goal year after year, and you don't really feel like you're progressing. And so I thought maybe we could join together in creating a resolution of not overthinking healthy eating, because healthy eating seems to be a goal of many people. For a lot of people, it needs to be done on a budget. There's no shortage of information out there. If you scroll on your phone for a few minutes, you're just going to be inundated with tons and tons of information. And for every person that says you should do X, there's someone that says X is really harmful, and it's very confusing to navigate through all of that. And I don't believe that the answer is the same for everyone, and I'm the first to say that I'm not a medical expert, so I believe in doing this in tandem with someone that you trust, giving you medical advice that knows you and your specific situation. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is MrsCrunchy, where we discuss natural living in a modern world. So speaking of specific situations, this is why it is so important to work with your trusted medical provider, because if you have a specific health issue, start there. This is something where this is the most important thing going on in your life, and you might have to change a diet for yourself or for maybe one of your kids or your partner, and that is going to be the source of potentially pain or uncomfortable symptoms. So it really is important that you want to address this first. This could be anything from like a gluten sensitivity or allergy, or an allergy to something else, or maybe you have something going on with your gut. But if you don't know where to start, maybe just start there. And a lot of times, if you find the appropriate solution, it's going to have multiple benefits that you won't even think about if you're able to address the critical issue at hand. Now, if you don't have, and I hope you don't have, any critical issues going on, then next is just to start small. It doesn't have to be all at once. I think a lot of times we think healthy eating is so daunting because there's a lot of sources out there that say you need to stop all this and do all this and do this and do this and do this. And then it's just kind of like analysis to paralysis, and you're just like, I don't even want to try, because it all just seems so overwhelming. You can just do one thing and go from there. And if you're aware of your body, if you're aware of how you feel when you eat certain things, your mood, your digestion, etc., then if you're experiencing positive results, it's going to compel you to slowly branch out and do more. So the first step doesn't have to be to completely overhaul your diet. Just start with one thing. I think that that's a really approachable thing. And if you don't know what that thing is, make it have the most impact. So choose something that you're exposed to a lot. So for example, if you drink coffee once a week, then perhaps switching to organic, no sprayed coffee isn't going to be the best first step for you. However, if you're someone that drinks 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee a day, choosing an organic coffee is going to be much more important to you. Now, back to navigating the wealth of information that we are bombarded with on a daily basis. Use common sense, and it doesn't even have to be that hard. It's just think logically about things. If something seems too good to be true, some new diet fad, or it's this quote-unquote magical solution that's going to fix everything, and there's not going to be any sort of deprivation, there's not going to be any sort of discipline needed. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You might have heard the lists of the cleanest produce and the dirtiest produce. So the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, I believe it is. Clean 15 2024 was actually listed by the Environmental Working Group, and I will leave the link for you below in the show notes. And when you look at the list, a lot of them, if you start thinking about it, it's stuff where you don't eat the outside part. So for example, pineapple is on there, there's avocado on there, sweet corn, I think papaya's on there as well, cabbage. A lot of times, well, I always remove the outer leaves, so the first set of outer leaves when I'm eating that. So if you think about things that way, it's kind of nice because you can be at the store, you don't necessarily have to pull out your list. It's okay, well, how am I going to prepare this? Am I going to be even eating the outside portion or the outside rind? And this is a way where if you can't afford organic, then you can sort of stick to these things, and that way you don't have to make such a strain on your finances in order to afford cleaner food. And that's another thing that could save you some money, because a lot of these processed foods that have a bunch of complicated ingredients in them, they are not that cheap, first of all. And two, they're also just like not filling. So you eat them and then you still have to eat something else in order to feel full or to feel satiated. And a lot of times, not only is this due to not having like fiber, for example, in them, but also it's because you're not getting what your body actually needs. So your body is still craving something else. So I think sometimes people believe that they have to change the entire palette of their meals, or everything that they create from then on, if they decide to eat in a more healthy way, is going to be unpalatable. Especially if you have kids, you're probably like, I am never going to be able to have my kids try healthy things like picturing salads or, kale or whatever. I don't think that that is necessarily has to be the case, and you don't have to make drastic moves like this. You can simply do little swaps. So for example, let's say you are wanting to decrease your consumption of seed oils. I've done a video on this, but if seed oils are a concern for you, then you could swap out, for example, the best butter you could afford instead of seed oils. You don't necessarily have to change the dish entirely. It could be something as minimal as that. And then gradually, I'm someone that has experienced this, where my palate changed over time. So it wasn't that I always craved dark leafy greens, but sure enough, as I started to decrease the amount of sugar that I ate, things like that, and just include more greens in my life, I started to crave those things more. So change can take time. It can be very slow, and it's not like you need to just start creating a completely new roster of meals to fix for yourself or your family just because you want to eat a little differently. For any of you watching that have any tips, very simple tips for how to kind of upgrade your diet, then please leave them in the comments, because a lot of us would like to hear from you. Another simple way to evaluate the quality of the food that you're eating is looking at the labels. And you might not know every ingredient on there, but that should be kind of a red flag that goes off, where it's like, if I can't pronounce these things, if I don't know what half of these things are, then maybe it's not the best thing for me. So if anything, and it's not like I say it's foolproof, but in general, the smaller the list of ingredients, simple things that you know what they are, you know how to pronounce them, the better they're going to be. So in addition to working with medical providers, use your common sense and your personal experience to help direct you in the right way for yourself and your family. So how do I feel when I eat this thing or I leave this thing out? Do I notice a positive or a negative effect? That is going to be a really important guide for you as far as choosing in which direction you should go, which small change you should start with, and where to go from there. Now for me, I have to keep things really simple, because like all of us, we have things going on. When I make a meal, I have to, luckily my husband likes leftovers, and I'm raising our son to like leftovers, so I can cook once and eat multiple times. I know that growing up, looking back on it, I'm so impressed by you, Mom, because I know you're watching, but I'm so impressed by the fact that you made us meals from scratch every day. Every day growing up, we had something cooked, and it didn't necessarily need to be the most elaborate meal, but it was something fresh. I am not that way. So like I said, I will make something once, like a big batch of soup, for example, because soup is kind of an undertaking if you make it from scratch. And we will eat on that pot of soup for, a couple of days. I might even make extra and freeze some. So during an especially busy week or day, when I want soup or something healthy, then I can just go to my freezer, pull it out, thaw it out. So just keep things as simple as possible. Well, I hope this video has given you some ideas for not overthinking healthy eating. Let's not make eating well intimidating, and let's support one another. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you all again soon.